here, the annual
premature
Florida
there.
Keys.
Sorry about that.
The Florida Keys show at the Jägermeister workbench. And Andy, there's nobody better to talk about fishing the bridges and fishing in the Florida Keys than you. So thank you for coming to the show. So let's talk a little bit about what goes on with all those bridges in the Florida Keys.
Well, you know something, Rick? Of course, the Florida Keys are the sport fishing capital of the world. We've got tremendous stable of guides, charter boats, backcountry boats, offshore, you name it, it's there. But there's also those bridges there too. And you know something? He might not have known it, but more than 100 years ago, when Henry Flagler built the overseas railroad and built those bridges, he actually built the very first fish attracting devices, otherwise known as fads.
You're absolutely right. You know, the cool part about the Florida Keys, Andy, is not just the bridges, but it's also the reefs, it's the diving, it's the sightseeing, it's the lighthouses. And you know, Andy, the cool part is that the diversity of species that you have. And those bridges are essentially the dividing line between the Gulf of Mexico, Florida Bay, as well as the Atlantic Ocean.
You're absolutely right. You know something? I always talk about the diversity of the fishery, and especially in the springtime. You can go offshore, catch those dolphin, catch those billfish, come back in the same day and go in the backcountry for tarpon, bonefish. Where else can you do that, Rick?
There's no other place. And Andy, let's talk real quickly about the bridges themselves. The thing that's so cool about the bridges, what I see, is that if you're a young kid, it's a great exposure. You can take the kids down to the bridge, do a little bit of fishing. When the kids get tired, they simply go pile back up in the car, go to one of the local restaurants, have a great time. Let me ask you though, Andy, when you first go to the Keys and you don't know exactly how to fish the bridges, what would you suggest people do?
First of all, you know something, that Florida Keys Overseas Highway, there are 42 bridges over the water. My best recommendation, go into that local tackle shop in the area that you're fishing. First of all, if you don't have a rod and reel, they're likely to have rod and reel rentals for you. They can sell you bait, and they'll give you that local knowledge that you need to successfully fish those bridges.
Get that fishing license if you need it.
You got to have that fishing license, okay? A lot of folks come down to the Keys and they think, you know what, I can just go fishing on the bridge without the license. FWC watches those bridges out. You got to have that saltwater license.
One thing that I think is really important, Andy, is certainly we got to talk about the protocol about boaters versus people fishing on the bridges. Now, guys, let me tell you, as a boater, when you see their lines hanging in the water, hanging down current, give them room. They certainly wouldn't want to be running over your fish, over your baits. Give them room. At the same time, if you're fishing the bridge and you see a boat approaching, you know he's going to go into the bridge, wait until he passes by, because certainly nobody loves a big sinker coming in their hot wheelhouse.
And you know something? Best thing to do, you know, you can tell the section of the bridge where the boats go through, stay away from those areas in terms of your fishing.
All right, I'm going to give everybody a secret. Listen, guys, when you're down there, you're fishing those bridges, make sure you fish the down current side. So channel 2 on the incoming tide, great bridge to fish because you're not going to have the new bridge in your way. If the tide changes, you might want to go to channel 5 because then you're not going to be, actually your line will be down current and you don't have the new bridge. But if you happen to hit it wrong, you know what? Fish between the embutments and the pylons and fish it short. Remember that, guys. That'll help you catch some of those big tarpon and also, you know, all the other things, groupers. Now, tell me about a featured tournament that you got coming up in the Florida Keys.
We do. You know something, many inside viewers are going to remember the late Jim Mandich. He was a tight end for the Miami Dolphins, Rick, from 70 to 1977. He was also a popular Florida sports broadcaster. Jim also loved fishing and began his Mad Dog Mandich Fishing Classic some 6 years ago. This year's Classic, October 16th to the 19th in Alamorada. And there's a top boat prize of $5,000 cash for the team scoring the highest cumulative weight of the tournament's targeted species, dolphin, kingfish, tuna, and wahoo. Among expected participants are former Miami Dolphins players. Rick, now, there's much more details on the Mandich Classic, as well as many other events and tournaments in the Keys. It's on the Florida Keys website. Rick, what's that website? It's right up there, by the way.
FLA-keys.com.
FLA-keys.com or FLAkeys.com as well, too.